Alright, welcome back everybody, and in today's video we're going to look at how to get better gas mileage in the P-47. So stay tuned. Alright, so for today we're going to conduct a little experiment and find out how much does lean cruise save us in our fuel burn as we fly the P-47. Now we're going to be using the Normandy map. It's a lot larger than the channel map that's been around in DCS for a little while now, but the Normandy 2 map is an amazing map, and like I said, it's a lot larger, and with a larger map comes more flight time if you're into running longer missions. And as most of us know, the R2800 18-cylinder radial engine that's in the P-47 is not known for its fuel efficiency. It's a great engine, but definitely not light on the fuel burn. So we're going to look into taking advantage of lean cruise down there on the mixture setting. So what I set up here is a little mission that we are going to start up and take off from Ford Airfield here in England, fly straight south across the English Channel, and we're going to note what our fuel burn is. So for every experiment we need a control. So for the first flight we're going to start up, taxi over to the runway. Once warmed up we'll take off, turn south, climb to 10,000 feet and cruise at maximum continuous. Now I will be taking rockets as for my loadout, and I'm only going to fill the main tank full. So we'll take 270 gallons of fuel from our main tank, and we're going to see how much gas we burn at max continuous. The second flight we'll do is I'll reduce power to a cruise power setting but stay in auto rich. And then the last flight will be auto lean, and we're going to see how much gas we save. And then for this, we'll see what our average speed, our time of flight to get across the English Channel, and see where this gets us. Alright, so let's get going. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. We'll set the parking brake. Get our battery turned on. There's the gauges. Ignition to on. Set the motor brushes real quick, propeller full forward, crack the throttle, main tank on. Let's set our intercooler shutter to neutral. Oh, wrong switch. Let's set our oil cooler also to neutral. There we go. Everything's looking good there. Let's go ahead and prime the engine. About 4 shots should do. It's a nice warm day. Alright, and here we go. And engage. Mixture on. And there we go. Good start. Alright. See you guys after the warm-up. Alright, run-up completed. We're going to close the cowl flaps about halfway and get ready for takeoff. Tail wheel is locked. Everything's looking good on my instruments. Alright, let's go ahead and do this. Throttle up. Let's uncage the artificial horizon real quick. There we go. Alright. Alright, 30 inches. Release brakes, rudder. And throttle up. Rudder's effective. Airspeed's alive. Nose it forward a little bit. Build some airspeed. Check. And let's lift off. Awesome. Pause the brake, you're up. Close the canopy while we're at it. Gear lights out, gears up, flaps are up. Let's go ahead and start turning south. I'm going to go ahead and throttle back to max continuous, so 42 inches, 2,550 RPM. Let's go ahead and turn south. A little too far. Alright, so now I'm approaching 7,000 feet, the minimum recommended in order to use the turbo. I'm still climbing at about 1,000 feet a minute. And you notice that the manifold pressure is definitely falling off. It's wide, the throttle's been wide open for since about 3,000 feet, and I can't even with the ram air, I'm not even getting everything out of it. Alright, so there's 7,000 feet, minimum recommended altitude for the turbocharger. So now I can start bringing that in and bring up my manifold pressure back to maximum continuous power. There's the turbo speed coming alive. Here we are. There we go. 42 inches. Wonderful. Still maintaining my climb. Yeah, 7,000 is minimum recommended. Low speed control over the turbocharger is very, very touchy. That's why in the manuals it was 7,000 feet was the minimum that you were supposed to be able to use it. Recommended by the manual is 12,000 feet. Alright, 10,000 feet. We're going to go ahead and level off. Alter course slightly, get back to heading south. Now I gotta watch that manifold pressure as we pick up airspeed. We're gonna get a little bit more of a ram air effect down the intake, and you get more ram air the faster you go. So you gotta be ready and keep an eye on that turbo. There we go. 42 inches, looking good. Trim this out, and now we cruise. Now since we're up here cruising at altitude, I figured this would be a great opportunity to talk about fuel management in the P-47, something I forgot to touch on in my engine management video. So, fuel management is a little bit more simplified than the Mustang. Both fuel tanks in the P-47 are in the fuselage. As far as the internal tanks, there's nothing out in either wing. So, for the internal tanks, you have the main tank and an auxiliary tank. Now, all ground operations in the P-47 are done on the main tank, which the short end of the pointer is the currently selected tank. Right now it's on main. After takeoff, if you do have fuel in the auxiliary tank, which you can see on your gauge, you actually have a gauge for auxiliary in your main tank. Once you're airborne, you want to start drawing from the auxiliary tank and burn that tank completely first before switching back to the main tank. Now, if you are carrying any external tanks, whether it's the big belly tank or 2 wing tanks, after takeoff, switch it to external and then pick the appropriate tank where you have the belly tank, the left wing, right wing tank. I'm not carrying external, so that switch position doesn't matter, but that would be your sequence if you had externals. You do externals first, then your auxiliary internal fuselage tank, and then your main tank last. Now, due south of Ford Airfield on the French coast there is really, really close to Omaha Beach. And I left a visual marker there, that big fire that I left on the mission editor in DCS to help me out as far as dead reckoning goes. It looks like I'm not very far off course, so I'm pretty happy about that. as soon as my wings cross the coast, we'll note how long it took to get here and how much fuel we have left in the main tank. Alright, we just crossed the coast. Let's go ahead and look at the gas gauge. And looks like our main tank has about 190 gallons. So we burned 80 gallons of gas just to get here to the coast. That's quite a bit of fuel, so doesn't leave a lot of room for error for combat maneuvering and the return trip just on the main tank alone. So, like I said before, it's a pretty thirsty engine, so let's go ahead and set up for test number 2, and let's see where that gets us. Alright, here we go for test number 2. Alright, now we're approaching our cruise altitude of 10,000 feet, so what I'm going to do is level off. And I am going to throttle back to 36 inches of manifold pressure. By adjusting the turbo. Let's see if I can hold that. And then I'm going to bring back the RPM to 2400. Wonderful, there we are. This is a lower setting than maximum continuous. We're still in auto rich. And let's see what this nets us as far as our fuel burn. Looks like just to get up here, it took us about 35 gallons of gas at max continuous for our climb out. Alright, so it looks like at this power setting our average speed is about 245 indicated. Alright, so we just crossed the coast and we are just a hair under 200 gallons. So that did save us about 10 gallons of gas just by throttling back and cruising at a slightly lower airspeed. Looks like we only took a hit of 15 miles an hour indicated. So that we're on to something there, but we did stay in auto rich. So let's see what happens when we cruise in auto lean. Alright, here we go with test number 3. Gauge is looking good. Off brakes, here we go. These are up. Let's do this. Positive rate. Gears coming up. Alright, 10,000. Let's go ahead and level out. And what we're going to do now is bring back to manifold pressure. And looking down at the gauges, I want to get both of those needles within the blue arc. And as always, when it comes to reducing power, bring back manifold first. I'm just going to bring the turbo all the way back. And I'm going to bring RPM down. Alright, so I'm going to go, what I'm shooting for now is 34 inches manifold pressure and 2200 RPM. But I want to bring the manifold down to 30 right now because when we reduce RPM, we're going to get a slight rise in manifold pressure as we bring it down. There we go, 22. Bring the manifold up. Make sure we're not climbing. Alright, nothing weird. Alright. So now we are within the blue arc. Now I can bring back the mixture knob to auto lean right there. So it looks like I'm at half boost lever. I don't have enough thermal energy to really spin up the turbo right now because I got the engine throttled, or at least brought back to a low power level. Now with the Normandy map, you definitely got a lot more distance to cover as far as going from one side of the map to the other. So going from one of the distant airfields over in England over to Paris, you're looking at roughly a 200 to 250 mile one-way trip, and then plus the return trip, and then any combat maneuvering you got to do while you're over there in on your mission. So every little bit of gas that you can save, taking the aux tank filled with fuel and possibly even drop tanks, that's going to help you out as far as getting to where you're going. Alright, well there's my marker there on the French coast, that big old flyer that I put there on the map. Our average speed is about 220 indicated, so we didn't really lose a lot of speed by going into lean cruise. I mean, compared to max continuous on auto rich, we only dropped about 40 miles an hour indicated. Alright, we just crossed the coastline. And we're sitting about 210 gallons of gas. So we only burned 60 gallons in that for a small speed penalty by just cruising around in lean cruise. That's pretty good, and that's with a combat load. Alright, well that was very enlightening. Now, it may not seem like a lot, saving only 20 gallons from between max continuous and lean cruise coming across the channel. But I put the pen to the paper and did some calculations. So at maximum continuous at 10,000 feet, my fuel burn is 192 gallons per hour. Now contrast that with my lean cruise, and if I expand that out to an hour, it was 124 gallons burned. That is a significant difference. That's 72 gallons in an hour between max continuous and lean cruise. That's pretty substantial. Now that fuel burn matches up pretty nicely with this handy chart that I had made using data out of the DCS P-47 manual, plus real-world data from both the ART 2800 engine manual and a P-47 November model manual. So it lines up pretty close with what I had. Now obviously my max continuous fuel burn is a lot lower at 10,000 feet than it was. A lot of these numbers are at sea level power, so everything is can be consistent. Now I found this pretty enlightening. I hope this helps you guys, especially flying the Jug, especially with either mission planning and for your long range missions, how to dealing with your fuel burn and fuel tank management, as well as good ways to save some gas on the transit over. And with that, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the virtual skies.